2, 1. Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist of Facebook online convention. I'm Kate Ashcraft, also known as the Bluegrass Skeptic. I'm a bit of a writer, blogger, whiner, geek extraordinaire, I guess, maybe. Um, I live secular and I'm in the South, specifically in northern Kentucky. The state of God, Bibles, and bourbon, along with Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. If there was a God, save me! But there's not. So here I am. My blog mostly has to do about secular issues and all that good stuff. Not always pertaining to just Kentucky, but a lot of it does, since we have serious problems with abstinence and creationism in school and ARC parks and all this other goofy crap that I guess that's all these hillbillies have got time to do. I am a transplant, though. I'm originally from southern Ohio, and I just moved across the river. And now I'm wondering if I should move back up across the river. I don't have a lot of options around here. It's not good. But anyway, I just want to say hello to everybody. Welcome aboard. My presentation today, I'm going to be discussing religious trauma syndrome. This is a touchy subject, mostly because a lot of people don't speak about it. They don't talk about their experiences with it, or they don't recognize it for what it is and just assume it's a weakness in their ability to cope with change. Especially if you're walking away from religion, struggling with religion, or still believing and desperately trying to make everything match up. My speech, I don't want to call it a speech really, my presentation today, it's going to be discussing specifically, I would say, the religious upbringing and its effects on children's sexuality, especially when children are seeking confirmation in their belief, confirmation in God or this higher power that they're being programmed to believe in, and they can't find it, and the lengths that they'll go to, even to the point of hallucination and delusion, in order to find that proof, that need that has to be filled, that they know the path that they're on is correct. This one in particular is kind of deep. It's kind of graphic. It does involve sexual abuse, emotional abuse, sexual deviancy. It can get a little touchy when it comes to language of a sexual nature. So if you're at work, I highly advise you to have on headphones or keep the volume down. I won't be detailing her actual abuse, like, detail for detail, touch for touch kind of thing. I could never do that. So I just want to put that out there ahead of time, because I've had some people react because I didn't put a trigger warning out there up front. Oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for that. And they'd been through something similar, and it just was not pleasant. I mean, they weren't angry, but they would have preferred a heads up. So I'm trying to make sure everybody watching, you've got fair warning that the following topic and story I'm about to tell you, it's disturbing. It really is. So, first things first, religious trauma syndrome, if you're not familiar, also known as RTS, it's like a religious form of PTSD. I think the person that came up with it, her name is Marlena Winnell. She wrote the book Leaving the Fold. She relates to it as a process of when you're leaving and you're struggling with anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies, like your family falls apart, your social relations fall apart, eating disorders, sleep disorders, panic attacks, and, that kind of thing. The thing is, though, I have to say, I know people who are religious to this day who are suffering from religious trauma syndrome, and they're still in the throes of belief and are happy with their belief. And they rationalize the nightmares that they have about being abandoned or being possessed or followed by demons, not meeting God's expectations. They see that as a fault on them and a message from God that they're a screw up, when the reality is they're already suffering from a mental, break, from stress. They don't put the two together. They rationalize it away thanks to programming. Then you have folks like myself who get away. We start to recognize the withdrawals of this programming we've been brainwashed with. And like in the case of my friend here, it's even more, holy shit. you know, whoa. And honestly, I ended up talking to several other people later on, and she wasn't the only one who went through this. I met some folks that worse, way, way worse. I couldn't imagine much worse. This is like, wow. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Bear with me as I look up and down a lot. I'm going to try and maintain eye contact with everybody as best I can. But I also don't want to lose track of where I'm at on my notes, which kind of stinks. Um, so anyway, religious trauma syndrome. I want to talk about this girl. God, she and I are still friends to this day. I'm seriously. I don't even remember when I met her. That's how long it's been. I mean, at least kindergarten, if not earlier. Vaguely, I think I remember her. Very vaguely before that. She had a very upstanding, well-to-do, middle-class family where we grew up together in southwestern Ohio. Um, Dad, I believe, was blue collar. Mom was a teacher. Had a nice house. You know, they had the fence. They had the pool in the backyard, the family garden. You know, rebuilt garage. They had the family dog. She had her own room. She was an only child. You know, Mom wallpapered it. Did all kinds of fun decorations. I mean, hell, she was a first grade teacher, if I remember right. So I think Mom knows how to decorate a room, right? You know, so yeah, they looked stellar from the outside. Her family was a fundamentalist family. They were Pentecostal. And I was Pentecostal too. We grew up same church, everything. Right? We went separate ways later in our teen years, but I'll get into that later. Her home life, though, it was difficult. It was not an easy home life. Her father suffered a lot of abuse as a child, and so he tended to reflect that in his own parenting nature. Um, you know, and when I look back on it, I think one of the biggest things was that family business had to stay within the family. So it's a wonder she'd even, you know, talk about any of this, or let alone reveal it, share it with me. And this is even when we were kids. She would tell me some of the stuff I'm about to share with all of you. And I hate to refer to her as she, but I don't want to. We have mutual friends even today, and if somebody sees me connected, you know how that goes. I'm just trying to protect her anonymity a little bit here. Um, you know, and that's the thing. Her family looked ideal, but the bottom line was her mom and dad's affection was fickle. It was always conditional, and it almost always had a biblical reason, you know, for this or for that, or hey, you need to follow these rules and do things this way, or you're going to go to hell, or you're going to be abandoned, and all of this other just horrible, horrible stuff. And eventually, you know, she got to the point, I remember, she would like come over. She would even offer to do foot massages, you know, over at some of her friends' house for the parents, just so she could stay the night at the friend's house. She'd go run errands for them just so they could call her parents and say, hey, can she stay the night? She's not a problem, really. We'd love to have her over, just so she could get away, you know, or she'd run up to the library and try to get away there for a little while. It was crazy, you know. Anytime she could get away and just be an adopted child somewhere else for a night, she always took advantage of that opportunity. And she was always grateful for it. You know, anything she could do, she would do it just to get away for a night. And you understand, I mean, her parents, especially her father, he's very verbally abusive. And it eventually became physical. You know, throw her around, you know, the typical get out the leather belt, wake her up at midnight after a bad shift at work, and discipline her at like 1 in the morning because her mom was bitching about her when dad walked in the door. You know, and this is like when she was like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we're going to go wake you up and beat you now because you were a little brat earlier and mom didn't know how to deal with you being defiant and rebellious, you know. And I'm not saying she was perfect. When you're in a relationship, I think, with parents where they're fickle and their main priority is God and their outside appearances, and then you've already got a father figure who apparently was abused 10 different ways of Sunday, you know, in his own childhood. It's a very, very bad and toxic recipe. So she acted out in all kinds of horrible ways just to try and get attention, any attention at that point. And she felt guilty for that because she really did want to believe in God. She wanted to have that confirmation that despite all of this hell, she knew she had somewhere to go. She was desperate for confirmation her from somebody or something. Because other than her parents and some neighborhood friends, she didn't have any outside existing family. I mean, literally, her parents alienated everybody. All of the existing family members pretty much had nothing to do with this girl's family. So she literally only had her parents and some neighborhood friends. And a lot of those folks, like me, went to church with her, you know. So she had to keep up appearances because, you know, family business stays in the home. It doesn't go outside the home. But, you know, she was a daughter of God. And she waited. Even when she had the Bible thrown in her face, whenever she made mistakes, being told she didn't love God enough, when she would show signs of being really stubborn, when her parents would yell at her. She wanted proof, though, after a while. And she started daring God to hurt her. Just let that sink in. She was so desperate, realizing, okay, you know, I've been doing this forever, it feels like, to a kid. You know how you are when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. It feels like forever sometimes. So if all she's known is angry, you're a screw up, eventually she starts to think, okay, is God real? Does he even know I'm here? What do I do? And so she started daring God to hurt her. She would, you know, try to do horrible things to get his attention. You know, she would think about horrible things that she'd want to do to her parents when they slept, just to make him go, no, you can't be that way, it's evil. You know, she'd think horrible thoughts. Horrible thoughts. She'd be mean to the family pet. She'd purposely grab her mom's jewelry and destroy it, pull all the little gems out, and just let them get lost on the carpet forever. You know, she did everything she could. And at the same time, she would beg for forgiveness later. Because whenever she prayed, she was sure she felt God there. She was positive he was listening and he was there. But she had gotten to the point, she wanted him to step up. She wanted him to help her be deprogrammed of all of this bad behavior, all of this desperate attention seeking on her part. And she knew what all the ultimate sins were. I mean, she went to Sunday school twice a week, Sundays and Wednesdays. She knew that if you said the Holy Spirit wasn't real, basically you weren't going to accept the Holy Spirit, that was it. You were done. She wasn't going to go there. No, not at all. She just wanted proof. So, you know, at first she just started talking out loud to God. You know, she'd say how she hated her mom, or she wanted to, like, skin her mom alive one time. I think she said, like, peel her skin off her body alive. I think she got that from a movie. I don't know what she watched, but I remember when she told me about that. I'm just like, what did you watch? Because we only got to watch, like, rated G kind of things, like Flight of the Navigator. Tron, I think, was probably the most violent thing I was allowed to watch, and I think she didn't watch that, if I remember right. I mean, she would just rage and rage and rage and pray about it and just be angry, and she'd never get relief. He'd never punish her. Directly, just her and him. Her parents' anger never got worse or better. It all stayed exactly the same. And after a while, I guess she got depressed. She was telling me one time, I went up to her room and she showed me this old dress that used to belong to her grandmother. It had this old mirror in it. And she goes, I used to stare in this mirror all the time, and one day I realized that wasn't me in the mirror. That was some other thing in the mirror that looked like me. She goes, they had no feeling. It wasn't me. She was convinced she had a demon staring back at her from the other side of that mirror. And that maybe her rationale was she could piss it off, have it drag her, hurt her somehow. And then she'd know God was real. Because hell, she can't get God to do anything. The demon's there. So that'll hurt her. That'll at least prove to her it's real. And she'd sit there, she said, and she'd look at it and talk to it, and she'd dare it to come out and hurt her and say, I know you're there, I can see you. All these things that, like, Sunday school and the chick tracts had talked about. She had an uncle that had practiced witchcraft and told her about how he could call cats with his mind, and he knew the devil was talking to him sometimes, and that's why he went to God. So she knew she's going to get this demon to hurt her. And she started doing everything she could. Literally, she received a small window in what she thought was a supernatural world. She thought she had classic demon presence, like possible possession even. Maybe that explained her bad attitude. She just couldn't explain it all, you know. And every time she'd watch in this mirror, it was just really unemotional, this face staring back at her. It was cold. It was calculated. Sometimes she would blink and she swore that image did not blink back at her. I mean, this was like the spookiest fucking ghost story you could ever hear come out of a friend's mouth. And this is when she was like 11 telling me this shit. And I was getting nervous about ever spending the night with her again because of this stuff. I mean, it's frightening. It gives you goosebumps, you know? You're just like, ooh. And she's still trying to figure out, how am I going to get this thing out of the mirror? How am I going to prove that it's real? And when she realized that challenging it, saying, I see you, I know what you are, wasn't going to do anything, she thought, well, what else can I do? Now, by the time she was 10, her dad had started sexually abusing her. He molested her. So she started figuring out, you know, what made her body feel good or not. Because at this point, she'd take any attention, even sexual abuse from her father, because it felt like some kind of approval. That is how warped her mind was at this point. And so she would look at this mirror while she's laying in her bed, and she'd touch herself like her dad would. You know, she'd challenge the thing in the mirror to come out and do what her dad had done to her. Come out here and prove you're real. Come do this to me like he did, you know. She was willing to basically allow herself to be sexually assaulted by what she thought was a demon in her dresser mirror. And this went on for years. Years. She was like 10 or 11 when she told me about this. What she was doing, masturbating basically at night and challenging her reflection in the mirror as she lay in bed to come get her. And it never would. But for years, she did this. And I think this when she was about 14, I went up because she said that it wasn't in her mirror anymore. This thing, whatever she thought it was. But now it was like in her door. What do they call that? Matrixing, I believe it's called. She started seeing this image all around the house. You know, because her house, at least her room, it had that old style 70s wood paneling. You know, I'm talking about the dark oak looking stuff with the knots and whatever. And then her door was like just a plain pine door that her parents had never painted. And it had the knot swirls in it. And I remember going up there and she showed me this, what looked like a face in the knot. I mean, now that I'm older, I get it. But when I was young, she scared the shit out of me when I was like 13, 14 years old, you know. Freaked me out. She goes, yeah, that's it. She goes, I'll go downstairs and I'll sit in the kitchen walls and doing the dishes. And she goes, and up until Mom and Dad went and changed the fire stove area, they used to have a furnace, well, not a furnace, a fireplace in the living room. It had like a wood bin area with doors, and it was raw wood. Until they covered that up, she goes, it would show up there. And she goes, you can still see it under the stairs, and you go in that little door under the stairs. Because that was still just a, you know, in like an unfinished little closet like Harry Potter slept in. Just imagine it uncarpeted, and it's raw wood from the steps and stuff, and it's stank in there. It was, ugh. Because I'd go hide in there and play hide and seek, and I never liked it in there. So then when she's telling me, oh, well, that thing goes in there too, I never went in that closet again. It scared the shit out of me. I'm like, gross. Ew. But I digress. The point is, next thing you know, she's saying she sees it in her door at night when she's in bed, staring at her across her day bed, like with her feet are facing that door that's open at night. It has that knot right in front of her. And as she is sleeping, or falling asleep, I guess, looking at this thing, imagining it looking at her. Just, I guess, taunting her, like, I'm real, but you can't prove it, you know, and it was driving her literally crazy. And, you know, what's really messed up is that these faces and swirls that she saw, she finally, at 14, had decided, okay, I'm done being subtle. She literally started masturbating in front of that door, challenging it, butt naked in front of the door. Come hurt me. Come prove you're real. You know, I'm right here. I'm naked. Come finish me off. You know? And she never ever had that materialize out of that. But that continued. She finally got a boyfriend, though, eventually. When she was 16, she'd had enough. She called out her dad on his abuse over the years, and her mom opted to let her leave and not put her husband in jail. That's all her mom worried about, is that her fine, upstanding husband, who admitted and molested their only child, mom was worried dad was going to go to jail. So the daughter's like, hey, let me go. And so her parents signed her off, said, fine, leave, go, be gone, or whatever, you know. And they had no clue what was going on as far as her and this demon that followed her around. And it's crazy, right? And she left that house, moved across town to my friend Heather's. And her boyfriend moved in, you know. But what's funny is that from the very night she left that house and in her with her parents and would swore demons in the mirror and all of this stuff, all of it. She never had another experience like that again. The demon didn't leave that house. It didn't leave the wood paneling. And she could never explain that because when she lived in that house, even in like, you know, the Perkins that was nearby there, or the Frisch's, or the log cabin manor out near where her church was, her Pentecostal church in Williamsburg where we both went to church together, she'd see that demon. It was there. But with her living in that house. But it's like as soon as she left that house, as soon as that stress was immediately relieved, she never saw that again. She never gave it another thought. And that right there speaks volumes about what stress and granted sexual abuse can do to a person. You know, and stress, especially from religious belief that's been programmed and that you're not worthy or that you need to do more or that there is this being up there, you instinctively know you don't deserve to be treated like shit by your parents, but you're not being spared. After churches tell you all the time, children don't suffer. Children are innocent until a certain age. But yet this girl suffered nonstop up until she was 16 and left that house. And it's something that's I've thought about for years. I mean, I haven't talked to her in about 25 years. 25 years. So I haven't, well, maybe it's been a little less than that. I haven't spoken to her since she was 16, so, I'm sorry, 22 years. 22 years, because when she moved out, I never got to see her again, because she moved across town. That she left behind that house and you know, me, because that was me in that house. I was that girl. I don't even know who she was. I mean, I speak of her as a third person because I really can't identify with who I was then. And I get why I let all of that go instantly because all of that stress was gone. I didn't have to have the anxiety of constantly being watched. I didn't have the anxiety of meeting a parent's expectations that weren't even rational or reasonable for a child of my age. And that's what religious trauma syndrome is. And you don't even have to be sexually abused to go through this. I had several friends from that same church. They were never sexually molested. Parents were very loving parents. But it was the idea of movies from like the movie A Thief in the Night, if any of you have ever seen that from the 80s. You watch that movie as an 8-year-old, you're terrified if you ever come home and your parents aren't there. You immediately think you've been left behind because you weren't good enough. These kind of things cause an insecurity and cause you to seek out your own confirmation. And if you can't get that confirmation within your church, let alone your family or your community, you start looking for it elsewhere, including up here, in all of its sick, twisted, and sometimes very delusional ways. Obviously, mine was of a sexual nature because I had been molested. Uh-oh. Almost lost it. Because of a sexual nature, you know, mine affected me on a more sexual level, I think is why mine manifested like it did. I have no doubt about that. And I was always worried I was going to have a midnight visitor. Because, I mean, I used to get punished all the time. Because my dad would work second shift, I mean. Those are the kind of things you deal with. And that's religious trauma syndrome in itself. And to this day, there are times, there's certain things I can't stand. There's reasons why I don't have mirrors in my room to this day. And it's not because I'm scared of what's in the mirror, but I think it's just me trying to block away those memories as much as possible. Because when you look at that about yourself, sorry, I've got Velcro stuck to my bookcase because I just moved and I don't have much of anything to work with. But my point is, when you are left to your own devices to seek out your own confirmation because you can't even go to the flock in your church because your parents are going to blackmail you for still wetting the bed at age 10. Because your parents are going to blackmail you because you didn't want to get up enough that day, or they're mad at you because you just wanted attention, and because your mom was depressed because her marriage was married to a piece of crap, and she just laid around all day after work. What do? You start trying to find that confirmation anywhere you can. And when religion is involved, it makes it even worse. And that's where religious trauma syndrome comes in. And this is a very, very, very real situation for many people today. Even right now, I have friends that deal with what they think are demons in their sleep. They wake up from night terrors, from, just abandonment issues because of the programming they were taught. And I highly recommend that if you're going through these things, first and foremost, you're not crazy. You're not alone. And while it seems horrible, this is a natural result of what you've been programmed with. And if you can't talk to your pastor, community members, or your family, whether you're 5 years old or 50, there are 2 things you can do right off the bat. If you have internet access, get over to xchristian.net. Christian.net. This place has a ton of people recovering from religion that go through the same things you're experiencing, even what I experienced. You do not have to sign up. You can be anonymous, and you can reveal, talk, and share, and you'll find out you're not alone. And knowing you're not alone is half the battle, because then you can gain some confidence in knowing what is real and what is not. I know you've got a support network of people that you can, in fact, talk to if you need to. They are there 100%, including some professionals. It's kind of impressive. The other place I want you to consider, it's a telephone number. And I highly, highly, highly recommend these people because they're there to listen and to help. And they're called Recovering from Religion. You can go to recoveringfromreligion.org, or you can call 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT, okay? Or 1-844-368-2848, 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT. Call these people, please. Don't feel suicidal. Don't think you're crazy. If you're having an anxiety attack, call them. They'll talk you down. They'll help you get through this. You can probably even connect you to some counselors in your area that specifically deal with people recovering from religious programming. Because it's traumatic when you're losing all this programming. It's just like giving up an addiction. It's a way of thinking, and you have to stop that way of thinking that's poisonous. If you've got no one else to call, you can also call the United Way. You can go to their website. You can also go to the church, believe it or not. Just don't go to an evangelical one. Go to a non-denominational church and talk to a pastor there. A lot of pastors in non-denominational churches, non-charismatic churches, understand what you're going through and appreciate the fact that there's a lot of programming going on that's not healthy. And they know it's causing damage. And they'll be there to help talk you through it. If it's not a matter of you wanting to give up God, it's a matter of you just trying to deal with the reality of delusion. But anyway, that's my story. I thought it was important to discuss this because it's not talked about very much. It is awkward. It is. It's I don't know why it's awkward, but it is. I don't know if it's shame, if it's just you don't want to be judged and have people never trust your own judgments again because of a period in your life or what you're going through at the moment. But if you find the right groups of people, they will understand and they'll help you find a way out of it. But anyway, again, my name is Kate Ashcraft, also known as the Bluegrass Skeptic. Sorry for the up and down on the camera. Maybe next year will be a little steadier. Enjoy the rest of the convention. Hope I can see y'all down at Newport on the Levee. Oh, and I'll do Q&A for about maybe half an hour after this is over. So from 2:30 to 3, comment away, or if you just want to email me privately, you can, bluegrassskeptic@gmail.com. And I'll be glad to get to you, give you any advice, or if you just want to vent, hey, I'm here. I'll listen. Have a great convention, everybody.